Okay, I'm going to start this evening by welcoming you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, guiding them in the path to enlightenment. We start with meditation, and then afterwards I share a talk with you to help you understand the path to enlightenment that was taught by the Buddha. We use this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, as our text for this program, where each Sunday I go chapter by chapter in this book, helping students to be able to understand how to train their mind to get to enlightenment. Today we're in chapter 16, which after our meditation, I'll provide you guys a talk on dissolving the ego. Ego serves no purpose. This is where you're going to be able to understand what the ego is, what the symptoms of it are, and why it causes complications in your day-to-day life. But then we're going to focus most of our time on how to eliminate this and get it out of the mind so that you can experience more harmonious relationships. Because as long as the ego is in there, it will hinder you from being able to have sustaining and fulfilling relationships with the people around you. So if you'd like to join for meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting to be able to ease into the meditation. The chants are over there on the cabinet as a laminated sheet. You're welcome to help yourself and chant along. Just keep in mind that these chants aren't a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer, or anything like that. Today we use chanting as a way to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, it was used as a learning tool, as a learning device to be able to commit the teachings to memory. That every 2 weeks, the students would recite his teachings in order to be able to commit them to their memory. Where today we have books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, things like this. They didn't have that 2,500 years ago, so they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to their memory. So you're welcome to chant along if you'd like. It'll help you get more benefit out of the meditation as you ease into the meditation itself. After the chanting, I'm going to provide you some guidance. Yeah, you can help yourself. After the guidance, after the chanting, I'm going to provide you some guidance to be able to help you in the meditation. I'll be essentially instructing you and teaching you how to meditate while we're actually meditating together. Then after that, there'll be a period of time of quietness where we're just all meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start today's class. So if you like to take a position, whatever's comfortable for you, you're welcome to do that. And then I'll come in with the chanting and come back with the guidance after that. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusana Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here, you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that the mind moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. สัมมาสัมพุทโธเอมาเกวาโพตังมหาเกวันหังอาภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตเอมหาเกวัตตาตัมโมดามังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนเอมหาเกวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสเอมหะเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโหโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation, once again, good evening to you guys. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon for everybody who's online, whatever time zone you're in. As I was sharing, this class is to help you understand the ego. The ego stands in your way of experiencing harmonious relationships. It can actually even hinder you from actually getting the very help that you need to actually eliminate the ego. I'm going to help you guys to understand what this is, because during the lifetime of the Buddha, the word ego didn't actually exist. He actually talked about what we refer to as the ego as two separate things, which is actually really helpful to understand it the way that the Buddha understood it, because these two things that we're combining and calling the ego, it actually has completely different symptoms, and there's completely different methods and techniques about how to eliminate these. Whereas if you only understood what we typically think of as the ego, which is like arrogance and pride, you wouldn't be fully understanding what the ego is and be able to fully eradicate it. So just like always, I'm going to open up for questions as we go. For those of you guys here, you guys know about the microphones. And then for those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any and all questions that you like. So as I was mentioning, this word ego didn't exist during the lifetime of the Buddha, but you need to dissolve the ego. You need to eliminate it out of the mind, because there's all kinds of symptoms that you're going to experience because of this. And I'm going to be describing to you what the ego is, and I'm going to be describing to you the symptoms and the complications and difficulties that you experience because of the ego. And this is your way of confirming that your mind actually has this, because there's nothing in the teachings of the Buddha based in belief. You're not interested in believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. You're learning, growing, and developing in this life to become a better and better person. So you need to not believe what it is that I share as teachings, whether it's when I'm talking or what I write in books and things like this. Don't believe any of this stuff. You need to be able to learn, examine, and investigate it. You need to be able to reflect to verify if it's true or if it's false. And then you need to practice it, integrating it into your day-to-day life. And that's where you ultimately transform your mind through the cultivation of wisdom. So I'm going to share with you guys what the symptoms are so that you can see that your mind has this. And that's where you'll be able to verify that, yes, this is actually true. That's exactly what I experienced, because I haven't really spent much time with those of you guys here, with those of you guys online. I've spent time with some of you guys. So you'll know, though, through the things that I describe, that the symptoms that you're experiencing is because of this ego. So first, let's just talk about what the ego is. This is a collection of experiences from our past and our future expectations that we have of ourselves. Ego is accumulated through our thoughts, our ideas, our perceptions that we have of our self-image and our self-identity of who we think we are. The ego contains arrogance, pride, judgment, measuring and comparing, thinking that we're superior or inferior. If the ego is present, that means in some cases you're going to put yourself above people and look down on people, but in other situations you're going to put yourself below people. You're going to be shaken up when you're around them, maybe like your boss, or maybe like a famous celebrity or a politician or something like that. You might be all shaken up around this person because the mind thinks that you're below this person. So putting yourself above people understand that that's unwise, but actually putting yourself below people is just as dangerous as putting yourself above people. So if there's ego in the mind, you're going to tend to do both of these at different times. It's almost like the mind's looking for a certain pecking order when you're spending time in a social situation. So the mind's going to cling to a self-image and a self-identity, thinking that this is who you are. Then there's going to be ego, and there's going to be this arrogance, pride, this measuring and comparing, thinking of yourself above or below people. And you're going to tend to talk down to people who you think are below you, and it's going to damage your relationships. Usually those people will tend to push you aside, or you'll put yourself below people, like I said, and you'll be shaken up. And now when you're in a situation where maybe you're at work and your boss is trying to help you to know about a new project coming up, they don't necessarily have confidence in you that you're going to do a good job because you're all shaken up in this situation. So again, this word ego didn't exist during the lifetime of the Buddha. We're combining two things that he talked about that we're referring to as the ego. This word just came about, the word ego, in the last several hundred years, but it's better to understand it in the way that the Buddha taught it. So let me explain it to you in the way that the Buddha taught it. There's these individual pollutions in the mind that the Buddha discovered. He refers to them as fetters. Some people call them taints or defilements or pollutions of mind. These are what you're uprooting out of the mind in order to be able to get to enlightenment. There's these 10 individual pollutions. They're referred to as fetters because during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were someone that they were trying to keep confined to a certain area, they would have put a fetter around your ankle, like a shackle and a chain and a ball, and then they would just keep you in a field. Where today we put these types of people in jail cells or prison cells, where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they just attached a fetter around their ankle and left them in this open field, and somebody would kind of monitor that they're still around. So the prisoners are going to be stuck and trapped because they have this fetter, this shackle and chain and ball around their ankle. So when the Buddha discovered these 10 pollutions in the mind, he refers to them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped and stuck in this unenlightened state, experiencing discontentedness, anger, and frustration over and over and over and over again. But just like the prisoner, when you release the shackle off the ankle, they're free, they're liberated. The same thing is true about the mind. When you eliminate these 10 pollutions or these fetters, your mind is free, right? Because when you're angry, when you're having stress and anxiety and guilt and shame and fear, you're not free. Your mind is all bound up. But you can get free of all of that by eliminating these 10 pollutions. So the very first pollution is called personal existence view. The 8th one is called conceit. We're combining these two things and calling it the ego, but I'm going to explain it to you separately so that you understand what they are, because the solutions of how to fix this and the symptoms that you experience are completely different from one to the other. So the first one is called personal existence view. This is where the mind clings to this idea of this body in this mind as being who you are as a person. Your mind will cling to your self-image or your self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only feel comfortable if you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. So for example, if you've ever been in a social situation and you spilt something on your clothing and you were embarrassed by that, that's your personal existence view. You're clinging to this physical body, to this self-image, wanting others to perceive you in a certain way. And you can only feel comfortable when you're being perceived that way. When your clothes are clean, it's like, oh, wow, I feel great. You feel so comfortable. But when you have maybe pizza sauce all over your clothing, now you feel uncomfortable because you feel like, oh, I'm a slob. And your mind's thinking in that way. Or say maybe you stood in front of your closet and you're thinking, who am I going to see today and how do I want to look? And now maybe you put on a set of clothes and you looked in the mirror and you're like, that's not it. And you put on another set of clothes and you're like, that's not it. And you put on a third set and you're like, okay, now I feel comfortable to go outside, right? This is your personal existence view, trying to cling to this body, wanting others to perceive you in a certain way. Maybe you looked in the mirror and you saw a pimple or a wrinkle or a mole or a gray hair, or you started losing your hair and you're shaken up by that. That's your personal existence view, clinging to the self-image, wanting others to perceive you a certain way. When I was a kid, before I would go to school, I would get out the gel and the mousse, and I would run it through my hair, trying to get every little hair in exactly the right spot. And I couldn't go to school until every little hair was in the right spot. And sometimes I would do this so long that I would end up missing the school bus on the way to school. So this is the personal existence view related to the body, where you're clinging to the self-image, only feeling comfortable when people are perceiving you the way you want to be perceived. But then there's the self-identity part, which is inside the mind. This is based on your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, any number of things your mind can cling to of who you think you are as a person. So if you were ever in a relationship and you thought, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, and your mind cling to this as who you think you are, well, as long as you were together, there was a certain amount of comfort that you experienced as a result. But then when you guys broke up and you were single, your mind didn't identify with I am single. So maybe wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship, because the mind thought that's the way to solve this uncomfortableness that you experience when your mind is identifying with I am a boyfriend, I'm a girlfriend, but yet you're single. The mind's uncomfortableness there, the mind thinks the way to solve it is to actually get back in another relationship so you can reassume that identity, where the real solution is to get rid of this personal existence view and no longer identify who you are as a person through whether you're in a relationship or not. Or say maybe your nationality, like I am American, or I am Mexican, or I am Chinese. Any of this I am Indian, I am Japanese, I am Lithuanian, any of this I am. Well, now when you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody's saying something very agreeable to you about your nationality, you'll be really happy, very excited, because it's like, wow, they're talking about me. They said all Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. And now you're so happy because you feel like they're talking about me. But then it's only a matter of time before 2 tables over, somebody says something degrading and disparaging about your nationality. And now you feel angry and frustrated because you think they're talking about me, right? This is what the mind does. You can even cling to, say, like your job or occupation. Like I am a police officer. And now you cling to that as who you are. And you feel great for 10, 15, 20 years when you're doing the job. But when you get laid off, when you get injured and you can't do the job, or maybe you retire, you kind of feel like less of a person. You're sitting there driving a taxi cab and feeling disgruntled and angry because the mind thinks I am a police officer. And now you feel like this taxi cab is not you. It's not who you are. But now the mind struggles with that situation, right? So this personal existence view is standing in your way of being able to have peace and joy permanently, because it's only a matter of time before someone says something either positive or negative about this particular body or the self-identity that you're clinging to in your mind. Like if someone says, wow, you're so beautiful, you're so handsome wearing that color of clothing. Wow, it really brings out the colors of your eyes. You might be like really happy with that. But then it's only a matter of time before someone says, where did you get that haircut? Are you going outside looking like that? And now you're angry or frustrated. So this personal existence view is part of the ego that the mind has. And now there's the conceit. Conceit is the measuring and comparing thinking of yourself as being superior or inferior to other people. This is the pride, the arrogance. This is what most people think of when they think about ego, is the conceit. It's almost like the mind's looking for a pecking order. When you go into a social situation, the mind might be trying to figure out who you're above and who you're below. In fact, a lot of times what people ask you is about your job or your occupation. They want to know, like, what do you do? And you're like, oh, I'm a lawyer. I help people with legal services. And someone might be like, well, I'm a doctor, right? And this is like the ego, the arrogance, right? People trying to measure and compare each other, right? This is not what's going to lead to harmonious relationships for you. So as long as there's conceit in the mind, you'll look down on some people and you'll talk down to them. And then you'll look up to other people and you'll be shaken up. And your mind's constantly having to switch between these two and trying to figure out, is this person above me or below me? Because you treat one group of people one way, you treat another group of people another way, and your mind's constantly having to switch between the two and figure out how you're going to treat these people. Where this is coming from is our animal existences. Right now, you might be believing that you only have one life, but one of the things that you can independently verify on the cycle of rebirth, on the path to enlightenment, is the cycle of rebirth. The Buddha taught that we have continuous rebirths over and over and over again until you actually get to enlightenment. And this is something that you can independently verify that is true. So as an animal, we actually needed conceit. We actually needed personal existence view too, because if we were a deer out in the middle of a meadow and we were eating and there was a tiger lurking in the forest and we didn't understand, I am a deer and that is a tiger, and if I don't run, I'm going to die, right? So you needed personal existence view to be able to know, I am a deer and now I run when I see that particular thing. And then the conceit, we needed that pecking order, because when we were a pack of wolves, we needed to know who's the alpha male, who's the alpha female. They're going to teach us how to hunt and how to survive. If we didn't know who that was, we wouldn't have learned how to survive through hunting. Or like when we were a herd of elephants, we needed to know who's the matriarch of our herd, because she's going to show us where the food is, where the watering holes, where the migration paths are. If we didn't know who the matriarch of our herd was, we wouldn't have learned these things. We would have just been a roaming elephant in the jungle, not knowing where to get food or water or where to migrate during different seasons. So we needed a pecking order in the animal realm. But when we come into the human realm, we don't need it, but our mind tends to retain it. And now with that retention of this ego, now we end up experiencing difficulties and struggles in our relationships because we put ourselves above people and below people. So I'm going to pause here and see what questions you guys have about these. I'm going to talk more about the symptoms and what the ego does, but I would like to make sure that you understand what personal existence view and conceit is first. So remember, here you guys have microphones, and online you guys can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom if you like. Looks like we have a question coming in here on YouTube. Okay. So, question here. What should I think about when meditating, or just focus on breath, relax my body, and think about nothing? So this is a meditation question. I can help you with this, even though we're talking about the ego, but I'll help you with this meditation question. During breathing mindfulness meditation, your goal isn't to think about any particular thing. Your goal is to just focus on the breath. And anytime the mind moves off the breath, cut that off and let it go. It's like exercising the mind. You're training your mind to build this internal mechanism to be able to cut off and cut off and cut off and cut off. So that now in your day-to-day life, you'll be able to cut off and let go any unwholesome things that are arising in the mind. You're going to see how that plays out with the ego, that you're going to need to cut off this ego. You're going to need to cut off other things too as part of your journey on the path to enlightenment. But this is what you're doing, is you're building this internal mechanism to cut off and let go. So the goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts or to have any specific thoughts. The goal is to notice your thoughts sooner and sooner and cut it off and let it go easier and easier. So that now in your day-to-day life, when you see anger arising, you can cut that off and let it go. Or if you see your ego arising, you can cut it off and let it go. Or you feel like you want to punch your boss in the face, you can cut that off and let it go, because it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So That's what your goal is for this breathing mindfulness meditation. Since you're on our YouTube channel, you might decide to do a search for chapter 11 of our book series, because you'll see many different times where I taught that. That's where I teach meditation, and you can learn all the ins and outs of meditation. You have a question? Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about personal existence view, I understand that we're nothing of I'm not my nationality, I'm not my career, I'm not all the superficial things that define me. So then what am I? Am I energy, light, love?
That's the mind still grasping for something. It wants to hold on to something and say, this is who I am. But your mind's got to get to a point where you're no longer doing that. And that's what we're going to focus on, is the solutions, after we talk a little bit more about the symptoms. But that's a common question. People say, if I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, then what am I? Well, that's just the mind wanting to grab onto something. And as soon as you grab onto something, you say, I am this. That's your personal existence view. So if somebody says, I am, some of the examples you used, I am energy. Well, as soon as somebody says, oh, energy sucks and blah, blah, blah. Well, now if you think that's who you are, you're going to be angry. You're going to be frustrated. No, that's not true. You're going to try to convince them that this is not true, and this is your ego, the personal existence view. So you need to get to the point where you realize there is a body, there is a mind, and they've come together for this existence, and we refer to that as a person or a human being, but you're not identifying with any of that. As soon as you have the I am this, that's your personal existence view. So you need to eradicate that out of the mind, but there's consistent training that you need in order to be able to do that. And it also takes a certain amount of time to understand it, because this personal existence view is something we've accumulated all through our life ever since birth, because we were all given labels at birth. You know, I don't know your labels, but mine's David. Right. And now we assign certain personality and character. And then we have, for our countries, we have flags, national anthems, sports teams that we cheer for. And we think, I am Mexican, so I need to cheer for the Mexican team because I am Mexican. So there's all these societal things that are reinforcing personal existence view. So when people first hear that none of this is you, people are like, hold on a second, this sounds very odd. It sounds very strange. But the more you strip this away, the mind will get to peace and joy. But there's certain techniques that you need to strip it away. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. You're welcome online. Pleased to help you. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit more about the symptoms that you'll experience. Now that you understand that the ego comprises the personal existence view and the conceit, whenever I say the word ego, I'm talking about these two things together. But then I'm going to split it back out and talk about personal existence view and conceit of how to actually eliminate this. So the ego projects its unwholesome qualities onto others, and then they read that reflection from the other person as coming from them, when in reality it's coming from your own mind. So for example, let's just say that you're in a business meeting and somebody walks in, and boy, do they look handsome. Boy, do they look beautiful. Every single hair is exactly the right spot. Their skin complexion is just so perfect. They've got the nice jewelry, the nice clothes. They've got a nice build of their body. And someone might sit there and think in their mind, look at them trying to look so beautiful. Look at them trying to look so handsome. Well, that's not true reality. The only thing that's happened is somebody's walked into the room. That's all that's happened. But the mind of the individual is wanting others to see you as being handsome or you as being beautiful. So when somebody walks in that is you consider to be handsome or beautiful, your ego, your personal existence view, is projecting that onto the other person and saying, look at them trying to be so beautiful, so handsome. Well, it's actually your own mind that's wanting that. The only thing that's happened is somebody's walked into the room. That's all that's happened. But the mind's perception is that this person is trying to look handsome or beautiful. And now when the business meeting is being conducted, you might be resentful and hostile and bitter to this person. And now your other coworkers see that. And now you have difficulties and struggles in your profession. So this is going to stand in your way of being able to see true reality and being able to understand true reality, because it's almost like looking out at the world through a dirty window. that you're looking out through this dirty window thinking everybody else is the problem, because the ego thinks I'm right and everybody else is wrong. The mind is actually having this judgment. What judgment is when you're looking at other people, measuring and comparing them, and trying to determine whether the things that they are doing are wholesome or unwholesome, trying to determine for other people what they should or shouldn't be doing. Rather than focusing on yourself, the ego will try to look at other people and try to determine for other people what is wholesome and unwholesome for them. So this judgment is something that you need to eliminate. What you would like to cultivate is discernment, which is wise decision making. But you're not interested in measuring and comparing and looking down on people and trying to determine for other people what is wholesome or unwholesome. One of the things that the mind does is it clings to its perceptions. What a perception is a view or opinion about the world that may or may not even be true. And when your mind clings to a perception, you don't really know what true reality is. And when you start making decisions based in your perception, it actually leads to unwholesome results because you're making decisions that aren't based in truth. So let me give you an example of this. Police officers are trained to not cling to their perceptions, because if you cling to your perception as a police officer, you're making life and death decisions. You could actually make a really unwise decision if you cling to your perceptions. So for example, let's just say a police officer gets dispatched down to a local store that's being robbed. A radio announcement comes on, says, hey, there's a robbery down here. We need you to go take care of it. And now they blare off with lights and sirens are running, and they pull up to the store, and maybe they walk into the store, they yank open the door, and they see that there's a person on the floor with a bullet hole and they're bleeding out. And then they see a person in a black hoodie with a gun over top of that person, pointing the gun at that person. Well, if you cling to your perceptions here, the police officer might pull their weapon and start shooting the person in the black hoodie. And they might have actually just shot an innocent person, because that could be the cashier. The cashier might have managed to get the gun away from the robber, and now they shot the robber, and the robber's laying on the ground. So police officers are trained not to do this. What police officers will do is they'll walk in, they'll pull their gun, and they'll say, police, put down your weapon. Well, if you're the person who's the cashier, you're going to look and you're going to say, thank goodness the police are here. Yes, I'm going to put my gun down for sure, right? But if you're the robber and you see the police officer with the gun, you're probably going to point it towards the police officer, and that's when they're going to get shot and they're going to get killed. So if you cling to a perception, it's going to lead to unwholesome results. And this is an example like with a police officer, but let me give you an example for like everyday life. Let's just say you have children, and you've asked your children to clean their room, that their room's pretty messy, and you say, hey, look, I'm going outside. I'll be home in 2 hours. I need you to clean your room. And they say, okay, mommy and daddy, I'll clean my room. No big deal, right? And now they say they're going to clean the room, and now you leave for 2 hours. And then you come back and you go visit them. And when you walk into their room, they've got books and toys scattered all over their room. If you cling to your perception and you think that they didn't clean their room, you might actually start yelling and hollering at your children, right? But you weren't there for 2 hours. You have no idea what transpired in that room. Instead, what you would be wise to do, rather than cling to a perception, is say, hey, what happened? I thought you were going to clean your room. And what your child might say is, I did clean my room, mommy and daddy. Right before you walked in, I bumped into the bookshelf and I knocked over all the books and the toys, and now I'm in the process of picking it up, right? And they're like, oh, okay, now you understand, right? So these perceptions that the mind clings to oftentimes are based in your ego, where the mind projects its unwholesome qualities onto others, and then it reads that as coming from the other person, when in reality it's coming from your own mind. Not only could you project the unwholesome qualities, but you could also project wholesome qualities as well. Like maybe you've recently switched to eating plant-based food, and now you consider yourself, I am vegan. That's part of the personal existence view. I am vegan. And now there's conceit around that, where you measure and compare yourself to other people. And you maybe see somebody else that's eating meat, and now you think you're better than them, and you look down on them. And now your wholesome quality of choosing to eat plant-based food, maybe the mind's wanting and expecting everybody to do the same thing as me, right? This is where the ego is involved. There's the personal existence view, and then there's the conceit. So what you might be coming to the conclusion of is this ego serves no purpose. It really just gets in your way of having harmonious relationships because it's constantly going to block you from being able to see true reality and just have loving kindness and compassion for all beings. Because as long as you're measuring and comparing people, you're not going to be able to have love and kindness and compassion towards those individuals because you're going to be viewing them as being good or bad. And this is not wise. You're not interested in doing this when you're in the situations around other people because it's just harming your own mind. So you'd like to get rid of this ego. So let me pause here and see if you guys have any more questions on the symptoms. And then I'm going to explain to you how to eradicate these and eliminate them from the mind. No questions? Okay, I don't see any questions online either. Okay, so now let's talk about how to eradicate personal existence view. This is where the mind's clinging to the self-image or the self-identity, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And this needs to be eliminated out of the mind because as long as it's there, you're not going to be able to experience complete peace and complete joy as the Buddha describes as enlightenment. So you need to uproot this and eliminate it out of the mind. So there's a meditation that you can use. It's called the meditation to realize non-self. This is part of chapter 11 in the program that I'm teaching and in this book. This is a unique style of meditation that you usually will start doing when you enter into the jhanas. What the jhanas are preliminary phases that your mind experiences on the way to enlightenment. There's 4 stages of enlightenment. First, second, third, and fourth stage. Your mind's actually enlightened when you're in the 4th stage of enlightenment. But prior to getting to the first stage of enlightenment, you're going to experience these enhanced qualities along the way. There's these 4 preliminary phases called the jhanas where you're experiencing these enhanced qualities of mind. And you'll know your mind is in the jhanas based on understanding what these are and having put together the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha. This is chapter 4 and 5 of our books. And this is where you're putting together all his central teachings and everything else plugs into this. So when you put together the Eightfold Path really well for an extended period of time and you're practicing this regularly, your mind will move into the jhanas where your mind will reside in these enhanced qualities of mind. And you'll move right through these jhanas. And that's where it would be wise to start using this meditation. If you started using this meditation right off the bat, it actually wouldn't be as effective. So you really need to kind of prepare the mind with all the other tools that the Buddha is teaching you to lay a foundation. Then you can bring in the meditation to realize non-self, which will then have more impact for you. So you can learn that at an appropriate time. One of the things that the mind does when it has personal existence view is it will cling to certain things as who you think you are. So for example, you might think this is my phone or my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my husband, my wife, my car, my clothes, my jewelry, mine, because the mind thinks that there's an I here. You might even think I am thirsty or I am hungry. I am angry. All of this I am. Well, as long as your mind is doing this, you're not going to be able to transform it to be able to see true reality that the truth is that it's not that I am hungry, it's that the body needs food because there is no I here. When there's a personal existence view in the mind, you'll think that there's an I here and you'll say, I am hungry. And now when you experience that hunger pain, you'll get grumpy and irritable because the mind's craving permanent comfort of the body, where in reality, this body is not going to be permanently comfortable. It's impossible for this body to be permanently comfortable. So when you start disassociating with this, and instead of thinking, I am hungry, you can think the body needs food. Or instead of I am thirsty, the body needs water. Or instead of I am angry, the mind is experiencing anger, right? So you disassociate with this I am. Same thing with like the phone. Instead of like, hey, can you hand me my phone? It's like, hey, can you hand me the phone? Would you mind handing me the phone? Or instead of I'm going to my house, I'm going to the house. So in most situations, you can say it this way, and probably 95, 98, 99% of the time, you can speak in this way, and it'll help you to strip away that personal existence view. But there's some rare occasions where you can't really speak this way because it would sound very odd, right? So like when I introduce my son to people, I will say, this is my son Bailan, because people know that he's the person that I've helped to create. Whereas if I said, this is the individual that I contributed sperm to create over 14 years ago, then you guys would be like, what? Like, what's going on here? Like, this guy sounds strange. I don't know if I want to get to enlightenment, right? So that's true reality, that I contributed sperm to be able to create this being, but that's not really wise to say that, right? You would just say, this is my son Bailan. But I know he's not mine. He doesn't belong to me. He is his own being, right? But we just say it like that because the English language is kind of unfitting to really describe true reality. We're here in Thailand, we actually tend to speak in the third person because the Thai language was created around Buddhism. Because Buddhism came here about 800 to 1200 years ago, the language that they speak was created about 300 to 500 years ago. So they created this language that they use around the Buddhist teachings. So instead of saying to my son, if he came home from school, instead of saying, how was your day at school, which is what we would say in English, we say, how was Bailan's day at school? So we speak in the third person because it helps your mind to disassociate with this I, right? So this is something that you can be doing even with the English language. Then you're going to need to develop the perception of impermanence in the mind, where you deeply can see that the world around you is impermanent. Because what the mind's doing with personal existence view is it's clinging, it's holding on, it's craving permanence. It wants this body to be permanent, when in reality, everything around you is constantly changing. It's impermanent. Everything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, it's all impermanent. So if you can go around the world and you can deeply soak that into the mind to understand this universal truth and independently verify that everything you see is impermanent, everything around you is impermanent, this can help you to eliminate the clinging to this body or this self-identity of who you think you are as a person. Then the thing that the Buddha did that was really predominant in his practice, and that he advised other people to do too, which you see will actually work, is to wear simple clothing and make your appearance look very simple. Because when there's personal existence view involved, we will tend to go to our closet and we will sit there and we will think, who am I going to see today and how do I want to look? And then you will put on different clothes, or you will grab that particular favorite shirt or favorite dress or favorite pants or whatever, because you're going to go see these particular people and you want to look this particular way. Your mind's selecting this based on your personal existence view. So what the Buddha did is he just wore simple rag robes. That's what he did. Essentially the same clothes every day. Because prior to that, he was a prince destined to become a king, and he wore very elaborate clothing. But when he stepped away from that life, he just wore simple rag robes. So some people do that. They'll just wear simple clothes. Like I wear these same white clothes, not the same set of clothes, but the same exact clothes every day, right? I have 30 sets of these at my house, and I just put on the same clothes every single day. And the mind doesn't get an opportunity to select what it's going to actually wear. So you can do that kind of thing. But if you're not interested in wearing the same clothes every day, or if you're not interested in spending money to buy new clothes, you can take the current clothes that you have and just stack them up and just pick off the top of the stack. That doesn't give your mind the opportunity to decide what it's going to wear. So you could have like your casual clothes and you could have your formal clothes for like going to work, and now you just pick off the top and you just wear whatever is on the top. But beware, your mind's going to want to grab from the middle of the stack. The reason why I know that is because even when I went to these white clothes, there were some of these white clothes that fit me a little bit better than the others. And I knew I was going to see somebody, and I was like, let me try to find one of those ones that fit me a little bit better. And that's where you got to cut that off and don't allow your mind to do that. Some other things in terms of your appearance, the Buddha taught to eliminate your head hair and your facial hair. If you would like to do this, you can. Not everybody has to shave their hair in order to be able to get to enlightenment, but it's one way to train your mind to strip away the personal existence view. Changing your clothes and getting rid of your hair, this is really, really helpful, because you'll be comfortable when your hair looks a certain way when you go outside. But if you shave off your hair, you might not be comfortable. And that's what you're training your mind to do, is get into a situation where you can train it to be comfortable even with no head hair. So the Buddha also taught to eliminate jewelry, makeup, scents, all these kinds of things, because you know you're comfortable when you go outside with those things. But now you need to train your mind to be comfortable without those things. Because if you can only be comfortable when this body looks a certain way, you're not free. You're not liberated. You're going around the house looking for the jewelry, looking for the makeup, looking for that special shirt. And now you don't feel comfortable to go outside unless you have it. So if you can train your mind to simplify things, now you do that for a training period, maybe a year or two. And now eventually you might just start going back to selecting your own clothes or wearing makeup or wearing jewelry. But you've gone an extended period of time without those things. And you know that your mind's been trained to not have those things. So those are some things that you can do. Then whenever you see this longing, yearning in your mind arising, where it wants to project a self-image towards others, you would like to cut that off and let it go. All these things that we were talking about so far, these are like proactive things that you can be doing to be able to train your mind. But this one here, this is like in the moment where you see your mind longing, yearning, you'd like to cut it off. So for example, setting up my clothes with the same exact clothes and on a stack of clothes, that was proactive training. But when I was reaching for the middle and I was trying to grab that shirt, I had to cut that off and let it go. That's what I'm talking about here. And that's why you're doing breathing mindfulness meditation and you're practicing generosity, to be able to build this mechanism in your mind to be able to cut off and let go. And now that's what's going to help you in your day-to-day life, where you see you're trying to project this self-image or this self-identity. Cut that off and let it go. And then over time, seek guidance with the teacher over multiple sessions, because you might need some more time to understand what is personal existence view. You might need more time to understand how to eliminate it. You might need help in different ways. Like, for example, I had a student contact me one time. They said, David, I've been having a lot of trouble ever since COVID. And I was like, really? What's happening? I'll help you. They said, well, I don't really know what's happening. I can just explain the situation to you. And I said, okay, what's going on? They said, well, before COVID, I would go in and I would order a coffee and I would pay my cash and they would give me my coffee. It took all of 30 seconds to order it and get my coffee a couple of minutes later, and I was out of there, no big deal. But ever since COVID, they don't take cash anymore. And now when I go in and I order my coffee, they turn the screen around and I have to tap it with my credit card. But the screen says, do you want to tip 15%, 20%, 25%, or 30%? And they said, now, David, I want you to understand, I am a great tipper. But in this situation, I don't tip because it's only a 30-second transaction. Why should I tip? And normally I tip. Now, David, I really would like you to know I am a great tipper, but I don't feel comfortable in this situation, and I don't understand why, because I tip in all these other situations, but in this situation, I'm not tipping, and I feel uncomfortable. And they said it another time. They were like, I would want you to understand, David, I am a great tipper. And I was like, well, this is your problem. This is the issue. Your mind is clinging to a personal existence view of I am a great tipper. And when you're tipping, you feel great. You feel really comfortable because that's intact. But when you're not tipping, the mind is uncomfortable in that situation. So this individual then understood, and now they've been working on that. So you're going to need personal guidance from a teacher to sometimes spot these things and to be able to understand what your mind's doing so that then you can target it. So have someone that you have confidence in and that you can reach out to and you can get help from. So this is how you eliminate personal existence view. Any questions on the elimination of personal existence view? No questions from you guys? Okay. So now let's go on to conceit. Remember, the conceit is the measuring and comparing, thinking of yourself as being superior or inferior to other people, talking down to people or looking up with people with such awe that the mind is shaken up. This is the boastfulness, the pride. You have a chip on your shoulder thinking, I'm so great and everybody else is wrong. I'm the one who's right here, right? So you need to humble the mind, right? So the first one here is, typically, when there's conceit in the mind, you won't say these things. You won't say thank you, or you won't say sorry, or you won't say things like sir or ma'am, or you'll really be afraid of saying, I don't know. There's so many people in the world that just won't say that phrase. I don't know. That is wonderful for your mind to be able to just say those words. I don't know. right? And now that's going to help you to be able to bring your mind into humbleness. So you can regularly use this. And if you speak different languages, which I know you guys do, you're going to need to look in those other languages for these types of words and integrate those into your conversations, the way that you talk and the way you interact with people, which will help humble the mind. This one here, something that the Buddha taught, is to sleep in a low position that's not elevated or luxurious. Sometimes when I teach this to people, especially when they're from outside of Asia, they can't imagine that sleeping in a different position would actually affect your mind, but it actually does. If you look at all the places in the world where people have the most ego, they tend to sleep in very high, luxurious beds. And this is the reason why the Buddha taught to sleep low on the floor. This is one of those things that it takes you all of about 2 to 5 minutes to set it up. And you will reap the rewards of this for many, many weeks and months and years. Because each time you go down into the bed and you get up out of the bed, the mind is releasing some of its conceit and some of its ego. So here in Thailand, it's actually very difficult to find a bed that is actually high, right? They're all very, very low, usually from the knee down, right? And this is the reason why, because Thai people know that this is really good for your mind. So what I encourage people to do is get rid of your frame, get rid of your box spring, put the mattress right down on the floor. It'll take you all of 2 to 5 minutes. And now every single day, your mind's going to be experiencing improvement because the mind's conceit is starting to come out. It's going to take you many months and years to be able to train to get rid of this conceit, but this is one of the biggest, most impactful things that you can do. If there's tasks that you think are beneath you, it would be wise for you to do those tasks. Like if you think like, I'm not cleaning a toilet, I don't clean toilets, or I don't get down on my hands and knees and scrub the floor. No way, that's below me, right? You would be wise to do those things because that's the mind's conceit. You would like to listen to others teach you wisdom without any interest to teach them anything. This is what you're doing right now, right? But that's not always what people do. Sometimes people come here to the temple and think that they're here to teach me, right? So you would like to always keep the mind in a humble position where you're not putting yourself below anybody. That's not what you're interested in. But just put yourself in a situation where you're listening to other people teach and you don't have this desire to teach them anything whatsoever. You're just learning what it is that they're sharing with you. One of the things that's really helpful is washing people's feet. This is something that they do here in Thailand. They actually call it a dam hua, where you actually will wash people's feet. It's usually done on like New Year's Day or on Mother's Day or Father's Day or on your birthday or something like this. You will usually do this for your parents, your grandparents. If you have older aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters, you can do it for them as well. Some people like to do it for their teachers. This helps to humble the mind, and it puts the mind in a position where it's showing gratitude and appreciation. And if you've never done this before, if you do it the first few times, you might notice that you're kind of shaking while you're doing it. This is something that I experienced when I started doing this for my mom and my grandmother, and I was washing their feet. I was kind of shaking. This is actually the ego being triggered, and this is exactly what you would like to experience, is get down on your knees. You're not putting yourself below your family or your teacher or whatever. You're just choosing to get in a low position and now wash their feet and humble the mind. And now you might notice that you're shaken up. So if you're noticing that, do it multiple times. And even if you aren't noticing that, do it multiple times, because you're not going to be able to do it just one time, and this eliminates the ego. You'd like to do it actually multiple times. And now if you get to the point where you're doing this regularly, it'll help the mind to get to this point where it's eliminating its conceit. Then you would like to show respect and gratitude to people with this why that they do in Thailand, and they do this in other places too. It's actually becoming more and more of an international symbol of appreciation and gratitude. I actually see famous celebrities from Hollywood and places like this that when they're receiving awards, they will get on stage and they will say thank you to the audience, or they'll say thank you to their fans and stuff like that. So this is a very common thing. You know, I've traveled all over the world practicing these teachings. I've been to the USA, I've been to Mexico, I've been to all throughout Asia, I've been to Africa, I've been to the Middle East, and I do all the same things that I learned from the teachings of the Buddha. You know, so when I was in Mexico, it was like, hola, ¿cómo está? right? Or when I was in the USA, it was like, hello, how are you? Good morning. Nice to see you. Or when I was in Africa and Egypt, it was assalamu alaikum, right? And people just really enjoy this because it shows them right away through a gesture that you're being appreciative, you're having gratitude, you're being respectful. But what it's doing for you is it's helping your mind. It's humbling your mind. So you would like to be doing this regularly. Here in Thailand, if you do it a lot, 15, 20, 30 times a day, you're wowing people. And this is really helpful for your mind. You can practice generosity, loving kindness, and compassion. This is something that I taught about 2 weeks ago in this program as part of chapter 14. So you can actually go back and look at chapter 14, what these 3 things are, because this is going to help your mind to eliminate ego as well. Then you'd like to eliminate any judgment where you're not comparing yourself as being superior or inferior. If you're looking at Instagram or you're looking at Facebook and you're like, how many friends do I have? And then you're looking at that and you're looking at some of your friends' pages and you're like, how many friends do they have? Oh, I got more. Or I don't have that many. Oh, I don't feel good, right? So this is where your mind's measuring and comparing. And you'll tend to do that with things like salary or your house or your car, different things like this. You'll measure and compare people. So don't allow your mind to do that. Be kind and gentle because it's the right thing to do, not because you want anything from someone. You can ask people for advice and what they've learned in life, and then just listen to them without attempting to prove anything. You can help others without any expectation of anything in return. This is part of your generosity, where you don't want anything, you don't expect anything, you're just choosing to help them as a way of practicing generosity. Then you can seek guidance from a teacher, which actually helps to admit to the mind that you don't know everything there is to know about the world. If you currently experience anger and sadness and frustration and all these other feelings, there's still wisdom for you to cultivate about this world that the mind doesn't yet have. So admitting to yourself that you don't know everything there is to know in the world, it can be very humbling for the mind. And now take the next step of actually getting help to be able to learn how to grow and develop as an individual. This is going to help your mind. Then anytime you see the arrogance, the pride, the judging, the measuring and comparing coming up in your mind, cut that off. Don't allow your mind to do that. And that's why you're there with the breathing mindfulness meditation each day. It would be wise to do breathing mindfulness meditation to build that ability to cut off and let go. And then seek guidance from a teacher over time, over multiple sessions, because you're going to need help for this. Oftentimes, a teacher even needs to point out for their students when they're having ego and arrogance, because the mind doesn't actually see it itself. It's almost like there's this dust in the corners that the mind doesn't actually see. And a teacher's role is to help point out for the student so that they can see for themselves what they're actually not seeing. The Buddha calls this pointing out treasure, that a teacher will point out treasure for you to be able to then see the things about your mind that you don't see yourself. So spending time with a teacher or asking help, that'll actually help you. So any questions on the elimination of conceit? Looks like we have a question coming in on YouTube. So let me see here. Oops. Let me come here. Okay, so the question is how to understand the interesting rise by self-image. Does it belong to this kind of fitness to be beautiful, or is it right to exercise? But the idea is going to be beautiful is wrong. So it's important not to see things as right and wrong. That's actually the mind trying to look at the world through black and white. And what you're going to understand is there's multiple quote unquote right ways to do things in the world. There's this whole gray area that the mind needs to get comfortable with navigating. So it's important that you don't see things as right or wrong, but instead what the Buddha is teaching you is what is wise and unwise in terms of guiding you to this peaceful and joyful mental state. So what you're not interested in is clinging to this body, wanting everybody to perceive you a certain way. And I want to look beautiful to other people. But you're also not interested in being all the way on the other side of that, which is, I don't care about this body. I don't care how it looks. And you don't do anything to take care of it. Right? Because that's not going to promote peace and joy in your life either. So these are the two extremes that the mind can use usually see, either clinging and holding on and projecting this self-image to everybody, wanting everyone to see you a certain way and being upset when they're not seeing you that way, or being all the way on the other side where you're not doing anything to care for this body. But there's a middle way where you can come to the middle and you don't cling to this body, wanting it to be permanent, understanding that it is impermanent, but understand that the mind is inhabiting this structure, this body, and it would be wise to take care of it. But you're taking care of it because it's wise for your health, not because you're trying to project a certain image to other people and have other people see you in a certain way. So that would be the middle way, is taking care of this body based on wise decisions, because you're going to be inhabiting this body and you need it to be healthy so that it can last for as long as possible. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So just a couple more things to share with you guys, and then we'll kind of wrap up class. These are the words of the Buddha, where he's actually talking to one of his students and helping one of his students to understand about the ego. It's titled, "Gain, Honor, and Praise Are an Obstacle, Even for an Arahant." An Arahant is an enlightened being. This is the way they would refer to it during the lifetime of the Buddha, where today we would just say enlightened being. So monks, gain, honor, and praise, I say, are an obstacle, even for a monk who is an arahant, one with taints destroyed. When this was said, the Venerable Ananda asked the master teacher Gautama, "Why, Venerable Sir, are gain, honor, and praise an obstacle, even for a monk with taints destroyed?" So those taints are the 10 fetters. And Ananda is one of the Buddha's close students, and he's rightfully asking this question because he's like, hold on a second. If an enlightened being is having difficulties with gain, honor, and praise, why is that so? Because an enlightened being's mind is already liberated. Their life is completely at ease. They're living a wonderful life. They're living the ideal life. They don't have any difficulties and struggles anymore. So Ananda's a little bit confused here. Like, why is gain, honor, and praise difficult for this enlightened being? So the Buddha goes on and he says, "I do not say, Ananda, that gain, honor, and praise are an obstacle to his unshakable liberation of mind, but I say they are an obstacle to his attainment of those peaceful dwellings in this very life, which are achieved by one who resides diligent, dedicated, and determined. So dreadful, Ananda, are gain, honor, and praise, so bitter, vile, obstructive to achieving the unsurpassed security from bondage or enlightenment. Therefore, Ananda, you should train yourselves thus. We will abandon the arisen gain, honor, and praise, and we will not let the arisen gain, honor, and praise persist, obsessing our minds. Thus should you train yourselves." So the Buddha is saying, I didn't say that gain, honor, and praise are an obstacle to this enlightened being whose mind is unshakable. I said that it's an obstacle for that person to obtain enlightenment or attain enlightenment. So the ego stands in your way of this peace and joy. And it's an obstacle for anybody who makes their way to enlightenment. You've got to get this ego out of the way. You've got to dissolve that. Because as you're getting closer and closer to enlightenment, you're going to get so much gain, honor, and praise. People are going to say, "Oh my gosh, you are so friendly. You are so nice. You are so polite. You're always smiling. You're so lovely. I enjoy spending time with you so much. Oh my gosh, you are so wise. You know so many things about this world that I don't know." You're going to hear all these different things from so many people. And you can't go out into the world and try to teach other people how you want them to interact with you. There's 8 billion people in this world. But what you need to do is train your mind to not be obsessed by this gain, honor, and praise. When people are complimenting you, train your mind to just be unaffected. So if somebody says something pleasurable or polite and respectful, don't allow your mind to get pleasant feelings there. Because when somebody says something disrespectful, you're going to get painful feelings. So instead, you might just say thank you to this person. I appreciate your kindness. I appreciate your kind words, right? But don't allow your mind to become obsessed by that. That's what the Buddha is teaching you here. So then lastly, I'll share this with you guys. It's important that you always and forever develop your practice to eliminate the ego. and never assume that it's been extinguished, because it really takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of dedication. You saw that in the Buddha's words. It takes a lot of dedication and determination to eliminate your ego. If you assume that it's gone, it's going to creep back in on you, because the ego is in there constantly trying to tell you that you're more enlightened than you really are. Because if the ego can convince you that you're more enlightened than you really are, it can stick around, right? So it doesn't really want to leave. It's kind of like a bad tenant that is always staying, never paying rent, never giving you any money. And every time you think that the tenant is leaving and out the door, it figures out a way to stick around, right? You show up after they haven't paid for a week or two, and they're like, oh, the check's in the mail. Just let me stay a few more days. You're going to see the check's in the mail. And you're like, okay. And then you leave, and then the check doesn't come after 4 or 5 days, and you go back and you're like, hey, I thought you said the check's in the mail. Where's it at? You haven't paid. Oh, just let me stay a few more days. My mom's sick. I thought I sent the check and I haven't sent it yet. This tenant's always going to try to figure out a way to stick around, right? It keeps its foot in the door. So the ego is the same way. So if you convince yourself that the ego's gone, that's when the ego is still there. Because one of the best ways to know that someone still has ego is they'll tell you that it's gone. Right? So if someone might say, I don't have ego anymore. I'm so humble. I'm more humble than all of you, right? This is the mind's ego trying to measure and compare. So don't allow your mind to do that. Do you guys know that game Whack-A-Mole, where the moles come up and you have a mallet and you kind of hit the moles? Well, if you think that game's over and you have the mallet down by your side, when the mole pops up, you're going to miss it. You're not going to be able to hit it. So what I'm teaching you here is just stay poised and ready to be able to pop the ego. So whenever the ego pops up, you pop it, you cut it off and let it go. Don't allow your mind to think game is over. Not just with the ego, but even enlightenment itself. When your mind is actually enlightened, you'll see for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you don't have any discontentedness in your mind whatsoever. But don't ever convince yourself that you're actually enlightened. Just always and forever be training your mind, producing more and more improvement in your mind. Same thing with the ego. Just keep always working. Stay vigilant. Stay dedicated. That wherever you see ego, root it out of your mind, because it'll hide in the corners of your mind, waiting for you to put your guard down, and then it's going to come right back in. Okay? So I think that's all the questions. Do you have a question? Anybody have a question here? You have a question? Yeah. Yeah, take your time. No rush. For those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like.
So I have, for example, let's say that someone is being mean to us. No,
Mm-hmm.
they did something. So my question is, I mean, at first, like, I think it's my perception. Like they are not. It doesn't mean that they're really mean, but sometimes they can actually be mean and they can actually be hurting me. So how can I be loving and compassionate? But is it okay, or is it just ego to also put boundaries, set boundaries, and say like, you're not hurting me?
Okay, a few things here is, first, if you're experiencing painful feelings, it's actually coming from your own mind. It's not from the other person. The mind is longing, yearning, and craving permanence, wanting and expecting this person to speak to you in a certain way. That's the permanence that the mind's craving. Where not everyone's going to speak to you polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. So some people will speak to you that way, and some people won't. That is impermanence. But when your mind is experiencing painful feelings, that's because you're craving permanence, and you can only be happy when the mind's getting what it wants. So when this person is impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful, your mind experiences a painful feeling because it's not getting what it wants. So that's the first part. The second part is, when these kinds of things happen, the best thing you can do is just walk away. But your ego won't let you do that. Your ego wants to stand there and fight. And using some of the language that you use, which is popular with other people, they'll say, why are you being disrespectful to me? This is the personal existence view, that the mind thinks that there's a me here. The Buddha's exact words on this is he says, there is no you there. There is no you, right? But the mind's ego, the personal existence view and conceit, thinks that there is a me here. So when you hear those words coming into your ear, you're saying they're being disrespectful to me, when in reality, they're just saying things that are disrespectful. They're just sounds. Did you ever used to watch Charlie Brown? Did you ever watch that cartoon? You know, like when someone gets on the phone and it's like wonk, 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 like that. That's the way you should view that. Instead of allowing your mind's perception to think that they are being disrespectful to me, all you can hear is wonk, 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 right? And this is the mind. Now you can just choose to walk away, because it's unwise to be around someone who has ill will towards you. If someone has ill will towards you, they're wanting harm to come to you. And instead of standing there and saying something back to them, which is just going to flare up their ego, it's better to just walk away. And now this person learns if they would like to talk to you, they're going to need to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. And it's going to take multiple times of you doing that before someone might choose to do that. Now, in some relationships, you might just walk away from and just never go back, right? But other relationships, maybe you're more committed to and you would like to improve, right? So you're not going to get to peace and joy by just walking away from people. There's other things that you need to do, but this is part of the process of learning how to just walk away and not allow your ego to hold on. The whole idea behind boundaries that people talk about, this will never lead to peace. It will never lead to joy. This is a prevailing thing that a lot of people talk about in the public circles. But what the boundaries are is people are going out into the world and they're trying to teach other people how you want them to interact with you. And you will only interact with them if they don't cross your boundary. And now if they cross your boundary, so to speak, you'll get angry, you'll get mad. But this is like trying to teach 8 billion people in the world how to do things your way. Instead, you just make wise decisions because you can be empowered here, that you get to experience the type of situation that you would like to experience. Whereas if this person's being impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful, instead of setting a boundary and telling this person how you want them to interact with you, just choose to walk away. And now you get to maintain the type of experience that you would like to have, instead of trying to put expectations on this person and try to tell this person how they should function. That's the mind's ego trying to give unsolicited guidance and teach this person how to be in the world, where instead you can maintain your ability to choose how you're going to experience the world, where you can just choose to walk away and now you get to have the experience that you would like to have. And this person, if they choose, can look at that and see that nobody wants to be around them when they're being impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful. And now maybe they will change their conduct, but you don't know. They may continue to be the same way. It might take multiple months or years for them to choose to change, but at least you're creating the kind of experience that you would like to have, which is being as far away from that as possible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do then is just end by thanking you guys. Thank you guys here. Thank you for everyone online who's joining as well. Next week, I'm going to be in chapter 17, which is titled Eliminating Fears. Are you really scared? This is where I'm going to help you to understand how to eliminate things like fear of spiders, fear of heights, fear of death, and all these kinds of things. Because by the time you get to enlightenment, you don't have any fear in your mind, including the fear of death. So that's what I'm going to be teaching next week. On Wednesday, I'm going to be doing meditation with students and then just opening up to whatever questions people have. So that's an option for you guys as well. You can see all the options on our calendar over there, and you can see it on our website as well. So thank you for being interested to learn the teachings of the Buddha, and perhaps I'll see you guys next time. Okay? Take care. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.